At kaugnay nga sa Chinese New Year at kultura ng mga Chino o Tsinoy, makakapanayam natin si Ginoong Sydney Christopher Bata, Director ng Ricardo Leong Center for Chinese Studies sa Ateneo de Manila University. At si Wilson Lee Flores, kolumnista ng Philippine Star. Magandang umaga sa inyo, Sydney and Wilson.
Morning.
Okay, so maraming labels na sa mga katulad ninyo, Chinoy, Chino, Chinese-Filipino, Chinese. What do you prefer to be called, Sydney?
Magandang umaga, Howie, and Sini and Koila. It's Happy New Year in Mandarin. The politically correct term is Chinese-Filipino in English, or sa Tagalog, Chinong Filipino or Filipino. Pero there are terms like inchik, or they call the I word, na ayaw marinig ng ibang mga Chino. The origin of that is from the Hokkien dialect. So ang meaning nun is your uncle. So
Dati, word of respect yon.
Yes. And in Malay word daw, in Malaysia, it's called esquire. It's the Malay word for esquire daw.
Pero ikaw, pag narinig mo yung inchik o tinawag kang inchik, naiinsulto ka ba?
Actually, alam ko kasi historically, it's nothing wrong. It's a neutral word, historically. And centuries ago, yung mga poetry, yung mga Tagalog poems, andun yan eh. In fact, kung di ako nakakamali, even sila Cory Aquino, yung pamilya nila, Cojuangco, they called the first immigrant Inchik Jose yata eh, in their family. So, traditionally, it's a neutral word.
Traditionally?
Like, yes, historically pala.
Historically.
It's like the word Moro and Negro. Yung word na Negro,
hindi na ginagamit yun sa Amerika. They use African-American or Black. So, nag-evolve din yung language.
Oo, pero actually, the word itself, if you examine it, hindi siya negative. It's just kinuha ng ibang tao before, ginamit in a negative way, nagkaroon ng negative connotation.
Okay, so today, kasi of course, we're living in a modern age. Like halimbawa, kami sa media, umiiwas na kami sa paggamit ng salitang yon. Yung sabi mo, the I word. Hindi mo, halos hindi tayo nating banggitin. No, but maraming ordinaryong Pilipino, yung pa rin ang gamit sa probinsya, and then wala silang mali siya involved. No?
Tama ko dun, Howie, sa press, sa media. You've already started using the word Chino, which is why...
Or Chinoy.
Or Chinoy, oo. So siguro words really evolve like you mentioned in the US or in other places na nag-evolve. So maybe right now there would be a lot of people using the word Chino. Siguro we could have a common word for that. Maybe you could stick to Chino. Since a lot of things evolve, maybe this is one of those things that...
Pero meron tayong subject dun sa isang report. Ang tawag niya sa sarili niya or sa kultura ng Chinese Filipinos, Chinoy, no? So what do you think of that word? Kasi yun din madalas gamitin sa media, halimbawa, at ng mga katulad nyo sa mga Chinese community, Chinoy ang tawag sa sarili ninyo.
Yung salitang Chinoy, it came from the Filipino word Pinoy, which younger Filipinos think is more hip. So kung may Pinoy, they just added the suffix chi to it, to make it the word chi to the word Pinoy, to make it Chinoy, so it would sound more hip, more up to current
Not just hip, but isn't it more accurate? Dahil combination naman talaga kayo ng Chinese at Filipino. Dito na kayo pinanganak, and I suppose both of you are Filipino citizens.
Yes.
Kumbaga, parang Chinese-American, no?
Yes.
American citizen of Chinese descent or heritage, or Filipino-American.
Yes.
And I guess you would both be Chinese Filipinos. Filipinos or Filipino citizens of Chinese descent or Chinese heritage.
Tama ka doon. It's actually Filipino of Chinese descent. So kung gusto niya i-highlight yung Chinese heritage na, the word Chinoy could be used for that.
Okay, yung Chinoy. Okay, what makes it different from Chino or Chinese? What is the Chinoy perspective? Halimbawa ngayon, no? There's, I don't know if you think about geopolitical affairs much, pero may mga tension ngayon between China and Philippines, no? You live here, you were born here, you're citizens here, but at the same time, alam ko na many Chinese Filipinos think very fondly of China, even as the motherland, no? Pero ano ba yung Chinoy perspective when it comes to the Philippines and when it comes to China?
Ako sa tingin ko parang it's like isang lalaki, yun Pilipinas misis niya by choice eh. Tapos yun China parang lola niya o nanay niya. So yun parang ang maganda sa minority namin dito sa Pilipinas, it's a privilege and a burden to patch up kung may little differences. Parang whatever happens sa politicians on both sides, the minority has to always make sure everything is okay. Parang yung mga mother-in-law at saka misis, parati nag-aaway. Historically, yung mother-in-law at saka yung misis mo, parati nag-aaway, hindi ka pwede mag-take sides. You have to make sure both of them will become friends.
Ikaw, I mean, you're an academic,
Yes.
no? I mean, is that the general point of view na kailangan nasa gitna?
To make everything okay,
Yeah.
both sides.
Sa center namin, the Ricardo Leong Center for Chinese Studies, our main objective is to be the bridge between two cultures, the Chinese and then the Filipinos. Filipino culture, Chinese culture and Filipino culture. So we bring in a lot of these things because ang Pilipinas or Filipinos, we think we know China and the Chinese. Vice versa, the Chinese think they know the Philippines and the Filipinos. But the thing is, hindi pa tayo umabot doon. We just know the surface. Hindi natin alam yun thoroughly. That's why a lot of these things are happening. These disputes happen, misunderstandings happen because of these things. Sa center, what we're trying to do is we try to expose both where we're having, for instance, we have our film festival para malaman ng mga Filipino brothers natin na
Chinese Film Festival.
Chinese sa Spring Film Festival para malaman natin na ganito pala ang kultura ng mga Chino. And then what we're trying to do soon is to bring Filipino culture or Filipino films to China so they would know about it also.
Kasi historically, nahirapan din yung mga Chinese dito sa Pilipinas. Nagkaroon ng discrimination. There have been massacres.
Spanish era.
Spanish era pa. Pero I mean, more recently, ano yung pananaw nyo sa pagtanggap ng mga Chinoy o mga Chino dito sa ating lipunan?
Ang history ng China and the Philippines has been so long. Before the Philippines became the Philippines, bumibili na dito ng...
May Chinese na rito.
May Chinese dito. Noong 9th century pa lang, until 13th century or before pumasok ang mga Spanish, meron ng mga trading. One of those things na pinapalit dati, yung mga tobacco leaves ng Luzon. So when you say Luzon in China, they know it's Luzon, it's part of the Philippines. Ganun katagal na. And nung nagsettle ang mga Chinese dito around 13th century, they were just doing business. Hindi naman sila... They were not here to grab the land or to have a new state. When the Spanish forces came in, or when Magellan came in, the Chinese during the Spanish time they were quartered in a place. That's why we have the oldest Chinatown in the world. It's because they were quartered there. Hindi sila pwede lumabas doon.
Parang ghetto, ginawang ghetto.
Because the Chinatown here is maybe 100 or something years older than the next oldest Chinatown in the world.
Which is where?
I'm not quite sure where, but definitely
tayo
pinakamatanda. And yung next one, siguro hindi na kasi ganun ka-significant and ganun kalayo, 100-something years after na yung tanda nila. So, that shows you how long the Chinese were here. The Chinese were here to basically do trading, wala namang pananakop na nangyari that time. On the contrary, there were other forces that came in. So, these forces that came in, obviously, it didn't sit well with them that the Chinese were accumulating wealth because they were doing business. So, na-quarter sila doon. And then, yung sa locals naman, the local people would only listen to the government which was being
run by
foreign. So, noon
pa, mga negosyante na at marami sa mga Chinese sa Pilipinas, noon pa ay may kaya, may yaman.
It doesn't necessarily mean that way. Kasi dati sa China, merong 4 classes. Ang pinakamababang class would be the businessmen. And the educated people would be on the highest. So nung time na yun, nung pumapasok sila dito, they could only do business. Yun lang kaya nilang gawin. Nung pumasok sila,
hindi sila pwede sa gobyerno.
Kasi
saka bawal mag-own ng land, saka bawal sa mga profession.
Maraming bawal.
So nung pumasok sila dito, bare feet lang sila.
Well, these days, wala na mga legal barriers to owning anything by Chinese Filipinos, obviously. Pero ikaw, Wilson, no? Of course, looking at you, of course, you look Chinese. No? So, do you ever encounter discrimination or offensive remarks these days?
Ang nakakatawa nga yata ngayon, the stereotype minsan is positive Pero hindi naman lahat ng Chinese mayaman Some of the stereotypes...
So may stereotype?
Ang stereotype, akala magaling ka sa math. Pag sa school ka, ikaw dapat magaling ka
sa tingin mo, yan ang pinakamalaking problema ngayon? I mean, sa personal interactions mo sa mga ordinaryong Pilipino,
I think
maayos na?
Maayos sa tingin ko, unlike the ancestors namin. Kasi ang maganda sa Pilipinas, we are a democracy. Unlike sa Spanish era, dictatorship siya na racial system. Ang ginawa ng Kastila 333 years sa Pilipinas, parang South Africa. Caste system talaga. Yung mga Indio at mga tinatawag na Sangli, mga Chinese, pinaka-bottom sa social strata. Pero ang Chinese were worse off kasi ang Pilipino, kahit nandi-discriminate ng mga Kastila, at least Katoliko. Ang mga Chinese noon, karamihan, Buddhist or Taoist, so double discrimination yon. Culturally, outsider ka, religiously ang tingin sa'yo, infidel yan. Parang mga Muslim na tingin nila doon sa mga ano. So, maraming difficulties noon.
But at the same time,
Ngayon, wala na.
meron ka bang nararamdaman na resentment on the part of some, lalo na ikaw, you're a journalist, you're a writer, na it seems a big part of our economy is controlled by ethnic Chinese or yung tinatawag na Tsinoys, no? Siyempre, yung ibang Pilipino ay hindi maiwasang makaramdam ng, bakit puro sa kanila or may impression na gano'n.
Ako naman, sa tingin ko, not so much naman ang resentment kasi naging ganyan yata yan kasi historically, ang mga Chinese nung dumating dito, yun lang ang pwede nilang pasukan trading. Hindi sila pwede mag-farming, hindi pwede mag-doktor, bawal. So, naging tradition yata through the years. Tapos panahon ng Kastila kasi feudal, yung mga Kastila ayaw magnegosyo, puro landlord sila. So, I think it is much better than centuries ago or better than 50 years ago. It is not perfect siguro kasi no perfect. Kahit na sa America, the most democratic society, the blacks or the Jews still encounter some stereotypes.
In fact, it's been historically a racist society.
Yes.
So both
I'd like to add on to what Wilson said. Some of the Chinese who are trying to earn as much as they can is because of the thinking of a migrant. When migrants go to a new field, to a new territory, they're trying to secure their future. So they're trying to earn as much as they can. They're trying to establish everything as much as they can. We could compare this to yung mga bagong saltan na Pinoy na pumunta ng US. The Filipinos in the US are earning a lot of money.
So it's a survival strategy.
They still have that survival instinct.
So both of your parents are Chinoy or Chino? Chinese?
Sa akin hindi. My great-grandfather came here, and then he married a Bicolana.
Okay. So great-grandfather mo pa yung Chinese. So you're almost like me kasi yung great-grandmother ko was half Chinese.
Yun nga eh. In the Philippines, a lot of people are actually of mixed heritage, and a lot of them, or a lot of us, are actually mixed because the Philippines is as a multicultural country.
Yeah. But you call yourself a Chinese-Filipino. Or a Chinoy.
I call myself a global citizen.
Oh, okay. But ako, I never considered myself a Chinese-Filipino, although I'm probably as Chinese as you.
Yes.
So, what qualifies to be a Chinoy or a Chinese-Filipino? Kung ganon. Kasi lahat naman tayo may mix, no?
I think it's a frame of mind ba o state of mind or
It's a frame of mind. It doesn't matter how much Chinese blood you have.
I don't think so. Kasi like si Cardinal Sin, he was half...
Sin, of course, is a Chinese name.
Yes, half siya. And she considers himself Chinese and Filipino and both.
And even our president can trace his Chinese roots.
Ito yung,
President Aquino has
ito yung
Chinese
pag-usapan
blood.
natin kanina that kung a certain individual, whether he's of Chinese heritage or Indian heritage, if you do something concrete or positive to the society, then the society accepts you. And then you don't have to say like, ang ancestry ko is ito, ang heritage ko ito. If the society accepts you for the things you've done, then you're fine.
Okay, one final question lang. Dahil nabanggit mo nga yung immigration sa Pilipinas. The immigration from China has not stopped. No? Maraming bagong salta na galing ng mga Chino, na galing China, kagagaling lang sa China. Nandito ngayon sa Pilipinas, nasa Binondo sila, nasa Chinatown. Kumusta naman yung pagtanggap sa kanila? Lalo na mga Chinoy o Chino na matagal na sa Pilipinas, matagal na sa Maynila.
Through the movement of the Philippine tourism, nagkaroon tayo nitong retirement pass to come in and stay in the Philippines for maybe forever.
So maraming Chinese ang nagre-retire dito?
Ang qualify is, to qualify, you can have the early retirement, which is 35 years old. So kung pumasok na sila dito, of course, they could do a lot of things. They could invest. Number one is to invest. And then number two is to work. So yung work hindi masyado because of the language barrier. So to do business, yun lang talaga, until now, yun pa rin ang kaya nilang gawin because of the language barrier. So within the Chinoy and the Chinese, there are still factions. Wilson can attest.
So may factions yun.
I think it's always like that. Like sa Amerika, yung mga new immigrants and the established immigrants, iba. Pero when I see them, it reminds me of my ancestors.
Where do you see them?
I see them as like the first generation immigrants.
No, ano sila? Mga vendors, mga storekeepers?
Iba na ngayon sila eh.
Ano
Yung
sila
mga
ngayon?
ancestors namin, when they came here, yung great-grandfather ko and the others, when they came here talagang walang pera, no read, no write.
So yung mga
walang
bagong
Kastila.
immigrants from China?
Most of them are either middle class or traders na. At saka I think some of them that I noticed, mas mayaman sila sa mga ancestors that came
So
here.
yung mga dumadating na bagong, ano ito, mga immigrants na or gusto na magtagal dito sa Pilipinas, may kaya sila.
Iba-iba. Some of them are traders, some of them are immigrants, but not all of them are, kasi iba yung mga like, yung great-grandfather, when they came here talagang walang pera talaga,
This is the
they were
new wave of
refugees.
this is the new wave of the Chinese coming in. Hindi na sila pareho dun sa pinag-uusapan natin kanina na bare feet sila pumasok dito. The new ones that
Mas
Wilson
galante
is saying,
gumastos kaysa sa amin.
may pera na sila, they speak some English, they're here to study. That's the new breed of Chinese coming in. There's a small number, there's a growing number of Chinese coming in. They're here just like the Koreans to
And they're
learn.
probably studying also at your center.
For now, konti siguro, we find some who grew up in the Philippines. Let's say they come in at the age of 8 or 15.
I see.
Nag-aaral sila dito ng English. And then eventually, they start speaking English. So, hindi na sila pareho dun sa dati na pumasok na...
Pero tuloy-tuloy pa rin yung immigration ng
Because
mga
Philippines is a
Chinese
great
galing
country.
China. So,
But alam ko, there is, pero hindi siguro ganyan kadami. Ang alam ko, ang pinakamarami panahon ng Kastila and after World War
kasi
II.
they were also labor, no?
Yes,
They were used as
laborers.
labor. Okay, we don't have a lot of time, but
Yes,
magkakaroon ng Spring Film Festival yung iyong center to promote itong mutual
Yes.
understanding between the two cultures.
Yeah, we're promoting the understanding of both cultures, the Chinese and the Filipino.
Kailan ba to?
Meron tayong film festival. It's called the Spring Film Festival. It's the 8th Spring Film Festival. We have 8 films for 10 days. Libre lahat. It's at Shangri-La Plaza.
From China.
Yes, majority will be from China or Hong Kong. And then one is from
And
Taiwan.
there's some great directors now from China and Hong
Yes,
Kong.
yes.
Any big names na magpapalabas ng mga pelikula dito?
Meron tayong Jackie Chan. He directed one. But
Okay,
we have
Jackie Chan film. Okay.
we have the Aftershock, which is about calamity. We would see how
ito,
China.
it's showing now.
Yes, it is.
Saka,
Oo,
ano,
yung second.
Shangri-La Plaza. Okay, so
Saka-
it's free. Free movies.
It's free to everyone.
All right. In time for Chinese New
Oo.
Year.
One of the orgs doon sa Ladon, I was
Yeah,
part
he
of
was
it.
he was a founding
I was
president.
actually founder of the org.
Yung co-partner namin for the last 8
Ateneo.
years.
Okay.
Student org yun, student org.
All right. Well, Happy New Year ulit sa
Ah,
inyo.
ganun.
Sinyen Koila.
Okay.
Magaling mag-Mandarin.
Sinyen.
That's Sinyen.
Yeah, repeat after me. Sinyen.
Sinyen.
Koila.
Kuala.
Sinyen Koila.
That's Mandarin.
Yes, it is.
And,
Ako
and
naman-
what language do you speak?
Both. I studied Mandarin.
Oh,
I
so
studied
what's your
Hokkien.
greeting?
Kyung-hee Hwatsai.
Kyung-hee Hwatsai, pwede. Oh, tama.
And what language
That's
is that?
Hokkien. That's
Hokkien.
Hokkien.
Hokkien ang salita mo.
That's the famous
Alright.
dialect in Singapore and Malaysia.
Okay. All right. Well, salamat sa inyong
Thank you,
oras.
thank you.
Salamat.
Maraming salamat din, Sydney Christopher Bata, Director ng Ricardo Leong Center for Chinese Studies sa Ateneo de Manila University. At si Wilson Lee Flores, kolumnista ng Philippine Star.